I can't even tell you how many times I was asked, so are you still single?
How did all those narratives in your head actually block you from love? Okay, so you were single for quite some time.
Well, thank you for pointing that out. I was.
You were. And I don't think that's anything to be ashamed of. I
It,
actually think
it
that
is absolutely not.
you got so much out of life being single for a long time.
I don't think anyone went harder as a single person than I did.
That's not true. There are people that have gone harder than you.
I don't know.
You did good.
Well,
Yeah.
good is relative, but yes,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed my single life.
Yeah. So why did you want to talk about this subject today?
It was hard in ways to be single. There's so much pressure from society that makes you feel less than when you're not married. And I really think that goes for the woman who's never been married, or even it can be like someone who's been divorced and is single. Society,
or even men too.
Men too. Yeah, absolutely not just women. There's a little bit of like stigma around it. And I lived that stigma for a very long time. And I want to share about my experience because I think others will feel seen and will feel hopeful. I think that's really the nuts and bolts of it.
What was it like to be single for those years as the later years approached?
Overall, I don't want to be like, it was the worst, because it wasn't. I traveled to nearly 40 countries, and I went to music festivals and saw concerts, and I got to do a lot of really cool things. Not to say you can't do those with a partner, but I gained a lot of experiences I wouldn't have otherwise had, I don't think, and built really strong friendships with my girlfriends. And I still had so much joy and a extremely full life. But there was always this like longing in my heart of wanting to meet my person. And almost this thought of like, and I think this is an untrue thought, and it is one that society programs into, I think a lot of women, probably some men too, but it was this thought of my life will start once I meet my person. And although I was doing really cool and fun things in the meantime, that created this like sadness in me that like, oh, I'm not really living my full life because I'm not married yet. And I think I spent a lot of those years fighting narratives from society that I now can look back on and call their bluff and be like, oh, I don't believe any of that. But during those years, there's pressure from different people in my life and society in general that was painful, I would say, to navigate.
You mentioned narratives. Can you say what some of those narratives were? Not just from society, but in your specific head. Like, what were some of the narratives maybe that you were carrying?
Well, the first one I mentioned is my life won't start until I find my person, which now I call BS on. Totally not true. My life didn't start when I met you. I was living the whole time. The next one would be, it says something about me that I'm single, almost as if there's something wrong with me. And that narrative gets ingrained because I can't even tell you how many times I was asked, so are you still single? The way that it rolls off of people's tongue, or the way that it came into me, was as if it wasn't okay that I was, or it was sad that I was, or that I was lacking. Like, are you still single?
So you really believed you were lacking?
I didn't know, but I would say at times yes, if I'm really honest,
It would creep in.
Because I was asked so many times.
Mm-hmm.
Or, are you dating anyone? Oh, you're still single? I even remember being at a wedding and someone saying, "You're just as pretty as the bride. Someday someone will want to marry you." And being
Whoa.
like, wow. Like, and these questions came with good intentions, but a lack of awareness that most people have. I think I would almost equate it to how so many people will ask women, "Oh, are you going to have kids?" Not knowing that she's been trying to get pregnant for 5 years and is silently struggling and melts at that question, right? People don't, they think it's a lighthearted question, but really, they're not seeing the silent battle. So I personally, I try avoid asking, "Are you dating anyone? And are you trying to have kids?" So those are a few that I feel like are really common with probably men, but mostly women.
How did all those narratives in your head actually block you from love or prevent you from, you know, actually finding your way into marriage?
Great question. When you believe the narratives that there's not enough fish in the sea, your time is running out, there's not enough good men out there, there's something wrong with you that you're still single, you are living and your body is in fear. It is in a scarcity mindset. You're believing that you're not going to get what you want because there's, all the reasons I listed, not enough men, or maybe there's that you're repelling them because you're X age and you're still single, or maybe you've gone through a divorce and you feel unworthy. And so you think you're the problem in relationships and you're buying all these false narratives, right? That put you in a state of fear. And that fear in your body has you at a frequency that feels a little desperate and it feels repelling. So if you approach a guy or a guy approaches you and you're coming from a place of fear, scarcity, and lack, they're going to subconsciously feel that because it's energy that you're putting off. It's like pick me energy is what is coming across. And so you as a man coming up to me as a woman, if I am in an energetic frequency of fearing that I need to be in a relationship, you're going to feel that desperation and it is going to repel you. Have you had those experiences where you're like,
Yeah,
when you were single,
like
like
supreme neediness. Yeah.
basically, or like overly so excited about you before they really even know much about you?
Mhm.
And it's this like, it's just an energetic frequency. And to change the frequency, you actually have to change the beliefs that you hold because it's all on a subconscious level. You can't just go like flip my energy switch. No, you have to actually change the beliefs so that you're showing up differently. And so I would say that at times I would falter into those beliefs of like, "Oh, I'm never going to find my person." But they would be short little kind of like sad windows where it would be like on a night in, it was more for me, it was like grieving that I hadn't found my person yet than fully aligning with the belief that I wouldn't. Because your thoughts create your reality. If you think I'll never find someone, or any thought of lack of I'll never find a good guy, I'll never find someone who treats me well, you won't. You have to actually believe that you will in order to find that person.
Yeah, it's scarcity mindset.
Exactly. And I think scarcity mindset in dating is an under talked about subject.
Totally. So I know you wouldn't regret anything because you ended up with me and I'm so fantastic. But but if you could have done things differently, what would you have done?
Well, of course, I'm glad that I ended up with you, but I would 100% have started healing sooner.
Hmm.
And I would have studied my past patterns in other relationships to understand what I was doing wrong. I had a avoidant attachment style. If you're not familiar with anxious, avoidant, and secure attachment styles, we should probably do an episode on that soon. But it's something worth looking up. I was very avoidant, and that was a problem in my dating life. I was not aware of that. Had I learned about that before, I think that would have really helped me. And then I had past pain that was holding me back, which which I've done a lot of work now to understand how it held me back. But I think going in and doing a lot more healing work would have catapulted me into a better place for finding a partner. Because, and hopefully this isn't offensive to you, but we find partners who are equally wounded to us. We find partners that are wounded at the same level we are. So, no offense, Dave, if I would have started healing sooner, I would have called in a partner who was more healed.
Yeah.
And I think that is something. I'm not saying I wish I would have done that.
You do not have to like do this
because
weird.
we healed together, but
you do not have to do the, what is it called when you're
cushioning it for you.
Yeah. I'm not taking it personally at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would have healed so that I would have called in a partner who was more healed and wouldn't have had to go through some of the toxic fights we went through.
Yeah.
Point blank.
Totally. I agree. I think that should be the answer. We've said this before, but just because you're grateful for where you're at doesn't mean you don't, like, hindsight's 2020. You don't look back and go, oh, I wish I would have. Like, of course you're going to look back and see areas of correction. That's like the point of the question, you know?
Right.
So if we're doing like inner child work right now, what would you like, not necessarily to your child, but to your like 25-year-old self, if she was in the room, what would you tell her?
Okay.
Or just your younger self?
Oh, I love that question. Well, besides the healing and attachment work, which I already stated, you're going to find your partner. Stop worrying about it, because the worry was keeping me at a lower frequency, and the worry
It's keeping you stuck.
was keeping me stuck. And the worry doesn't solve problems. Worry doesn't call in a partner. Worrying doesn't help. So just let go and trust what's meant for you will come, because it will.
Okay, so what do you think is the hardest part about finding love later in life, like after 30?
If you're single past 30, a lot of the times you are now entering into relationships with past failed relationships under your belt.
Baggage.
I don't want to call it baggage.
I don't like the term baggage
but
either.
like, let's just say very heavy lessons to learn from.
You have a lot of emotional baggage.
Yeah,
Like
scars, wounds.
Not all baggage is bad baggage. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's like your favorite, sweater, hat or something.
Yeah. But it's bad baggage if you haven't really processed it and healed from it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were in past relationships where things happened that really hurt you, harmed you, and you haven't done the work to heal from those, then you bring them into the next relationship. That a perfect example is trust issues. If you haven't worked through those, then they come into your next relationship.
Well, thanks for sharing all that. I think it's very vulnerable to share all that. It's very like such a touchy subject. And as your partner, and I've watched you kind of grieve what you didn't have, and I've also seen you adapt to finding this love and working for this love, and it's just been really cool. Like I think it's just been a cool way for me to understand it, that I probably would have never understood it if I didn't find myself with you. And I think it's given me so much appreciation and respect for people who are single for a lot of years. But I also was single when I was 35, and I found myself in a lot of those like kind of like insecurity thoughts of insecurity as well. And I think that just being a guy, it's a little bit different, but a lot of the same narratives and insecurities were definitely there where it was just scary. I remember telling my therapist one time, it feels like I'm in a game of musical chairs, and I just have this fear that the last chair is going to be taken and that I'm not going to have a chair.
Oh
And
my gosh.
yeah, like the music's going to stop. And she
And
told
all the
me, she's
partners are
like,
going to be gone.
yeah, and like there's just this feeling in my body that
Oh,
I
I
wasn't
know
gonna,
it.
yeah,
I'm saying that because I can totally resonate with that analogy.
yeah, and I remember her telling me, she's like, well, you got divorced. There's good good people out there getting divorced every day. Like there's new
so
ones coming
so
on the
we're gonna
market.
close this episode with like a little bit of hope. There's new ones coming on the market every day.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I think if you one thing we didn't talk about is when you date later in life and you are well, you kind of mentioned it, but when you are dating later in life, you are going to have to deal with somebody's past and the emotional baggage, or just accepting someone for the life that they've lived. And I think that can be a lot harder, and I think it's one of the reasons why people do want to find partners younger in life. I know I was that way because it felt easier to bond. It felt easier to accept before somebody had like a ton of experience they were bringing into it, because that's kind of more intimidating. And I think um, in working for our relationship and really going through the act of accepting our past, accepting our life experience, you accepting that I had kids and you will never get to raise the girls as babies or see, you missed a lot, but I didn't get to travel with you to Thailand or like wherever, um, and just accepting that has been hard, but it's also been really beautiful. And, from a guy who got married young and did it that way, but then also found myself in this situation. I have an appreciation for partners who find themselves later in life and still find a way to connect deeply and accept each other's life that they lived without each other.
That was really well said. And I want to add on to that because I agree. There's a lot of challenges we had to overcome in accepting each other's past, but the experience that you brought, having been married previously for 10 plus years, you had brought so many life lessons and I don't know even the right word, but a determination to not let our relationship fail. And I think that was really beautiful and helpful. And so, as much as I want to highlight there's hard to it, there's also completely the other side of the spectrum that people in their 30s have a lot more experience in relationship, and that can be incredibly useful.
Yeah, and I think we paint in our society just this light of couples who meet when they're young and are together for a lot of years, and I do think that that's beautiful, and it's something to be cherished if that's your story. But I don't think I hear as much people cherishing the story of two people that kind of do what we did, or even people who meet when they're 50 or 60 and accept the life that their partner lived without them. Like there is a beauty in that, and a lot of expertise and experience that you bring into the dynamic. One more thing I want to say on it is when couples are, get together young and really bond very young, I think there's more prone to codependency or enmeshment almost, where it's like you don't have as much independence, like you're not as rooted in independence. And I'm not saying this is everyone, I just think it's like generally, right? But there is a beauty in meeting later in life and kind of having a little bit more grounded independence that you're not really like, it's just a different feeling of being able to hold that polarity or that, yeah, because if you're a couple and you're not grounded in your independence, you end up being very you end up being very codependent and reliant on one another, and it can kind of degrade the relationship, because what makes the relationship beautiful is two independent people coming together to bond. And so I've just witnessed our ability to do that, and I think it's just really cool. So I want to highlight that as a very special thing if you meet later in life.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.